Discover the incredible moment a little girl healed a billionaire's son. No medicine, just heart. In the small town of Willow Creek, where sunflowers danced in the breeze and children's laughter rang like music, an extraordinary story was about to unfold. 10-year-old Lily, with her bright eyes and a heart as big as the sky, spent her days reveling in the magic of friendship and kindness. While the world felt heavy on her single mother, a waitress working countless hours to make ends meet, Lily hurried home each day with her arms filled with love, packed tightly in the warmth of their modest home. One bright afternoon, while swinging at the playground, she noticed Ethan Montgomery across the field, his brow furrowed, eyes lost in thought. A million questions packed Lily's small heart. Why was he alone? They'd always known the Montgomerys as the family rolling in money and fancy gadgets, but right now, Ethan seemed untethered from that world, trapped in his own stillness. With her giggles breaking the silence like sunbeams, Lily called out, "Want to try the swings?" To her surprise, Ethan looked up, their eyes connecting, a moment bursting with unspoken understanding. His lips twitched slightly and pulled into a faint smile. She didn't care about the wheelchair, nor did she dwell on the weight of their differences. In Lily's world, everyone belonged. Their friendship blossomed under the sunshine. Lily's laughter whisked Ethan into joyous moments that made the shadows of his room fade into distant whispers. As she pushed him gently on the swings, it felt like she was lifting not only his body, but his spirit. "You're flying!" she exclaimed, eyes twinkling. But darkness loomed just beyond their laughter. Whispers of scandal infiltrated the Montgomerys' dreams, threatening to shatter the image of the perfect family. A betrayal lingered in the air, tightening around them like a vice. Ethan, aware of the fracture growing at home, withdrew back into his cocoon of doubt. Isolation replaced laughter, and hopelessness seeped through the walls of his heart. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Feeling the tidal wave of despair crashing over Ethan, Lily refused to let him drown. With the spark of her spirit, she marched through the whispers of distrust surrounding Ethan's family, rallying the townsfolk to remind them of the core strengths formed in communities like theirs: trust, love, and connection. As neighbors gathered, they began to share their own stories of confronting tribulations. Yet, the air felt heavy as the Montgomery family struggled to mend their fragile ties. Lily understood that sometimes no ordinary magic could heal the wounds inflicted by scandal. Yet, her hope flickered like a beacon, urging everyone to see beyond labels. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows. Would love be strong enough to bridge the growing divides, and could Lily's heart heal wounds deeper than any storm? The clock ticked with uncertainty. The community found itself at a crossroads. Would they rise together or fall apart? As the night deepened, one question surged. Could pure-hearted friendship truly illuminate the darkness that crept into their lives? The following morning, Willow Creek awoke to a patched sky, gray clouds hanging low and heavy. The cool air seemed to carry the weight of unsaid words and unhealed wounds. Lily, dressed in her flowered dress that swayed like petals in the breeze, rushed towards the park, her favorite spot where the swings had once echoed with laughter. She needed to find Ethan. Her heart was a mix of worry and resolve. The previous night had been a storm of emotions, but the snippets of hope she had ignited in the community were still sparking in her mind. "Love and kindness," she whispered to herself, her little feet racing faster. When Lily reached the park, the swings creaked eerily in the stillness. She spotted Ethan, sitting by himself against a sturdy oak, a mere shadow against the tree's massive trunk. He looked smaller than usual, and an ache formed in Lily's chest at the sight. "Ethan," she called, her voice breaking the silence like a burst of sunlight breaking through the clouds. His head turned slowly, revealing tear-streaked cheeks. It struck Lily hard. There was pain in those familiar blue eyes. "Lily," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. The cracks in his smile told her everything she needed to know. He felt alone, isolated in a world that should have been filled with love. Lily moved closer, her spirit unwavering. "Let's swing," she suggested, tapping her feet with eagerness. She reached for his hands, her small grip steady in its warmth. Ethan hesitated for a moment, the shadows of doubt clouding his face, but then he nodded, a flicker of life returning to his eyes. As she pushed him gently, the swings began to sway. The gentle rhythm filled the air, a melody of hope echoing around them. "You're flying," she cheered again, this time with even more passion.
Each push felt like a small miracle, lifting not just Ethan, but the burdens that hung in the air. Laughter began to bubble out from within him, hesitant at first, but growing bolder with every compliment, every call to "look at you soar." Nearby, a few neighbors began to gather, curiosity painting their faces. They weren't just observers. They held stories of loss and recovery, tales of trust that they had feared were lost.
Inspired by Lily's infectious spirit, they began to break their own silences, sharing their experiences of overcoming trials in the wake of the Montgomery scandal. "Remember the time the Andersons faced eviction?" someone shouted, and the laughter turned to murmurs of support, reminding them all of their resilience as a community. Stories knitted like threads, binding them once more, while the sun began to peek through the clouds above. But just as hope filled the air, a shadow fell over them. Mr. Montgomery, Ethan's father, strode into the park, his face a mask of tension. "Ethan," he called, a mix of urgency steeped in worry echoing in his tone. The laughter quieted as all heads turned to him, surprise and unease thudding in the air. Lily felt a pang of fear. Was this the moment that would break their fragile progress? What would happen now? The tension settled like a thick fog. Ethan's eyes widened, a mix of confusion and longing. He looked at his father, then at Lily. She reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly, ready to face whatever would come next. Would Mr. Montgomery understand the depth of his son's friendship with her? Would he remain lost in the shadows, or could he step into the light with them? As heartbeats quickened, one pressing question lingered in the air. Would the bond forged in the innocence of childhood be strong enough to mend the cracks within their lives? "Ethan," Mr. Montgomery's voice pierced through the happy echoes of laughter, wrapping around the children like a cold hand. Ethan flinched, the fleeting joy on his face instantly replaced by uncertainty. He glanced at Lily, who held on to his hand like a lifebuoy in a storm. The crowd of neighbors held their collective breath, waiting to see how this played out. Fathers turned to mothers, friends exchanged nervous glances. They had witnessed a small spark of hope blossoming into something beautiful, and now, with gentle tension, they braced themselves for the potential shattering of that fragile moment. "Dad," Ethan started, his voice trembling. "I was just what?" Mr. Montgomery interrupted, his tone sharper than he intended. His brow was furrowed. A stroke of worry brushed across his forehead. "You're not supposed to be here, Ethan. We had planned to talk, didn't we?" Lily could see the hurt behind Ethan's eyes. It was as if his father were pushing him away just when he needed him the most. A wave of determination surged within her. She wasn't going to let fear win, not today. "Mr. Montgomery," Lily said boldly, stepping forward. Her childish voice, filled with uncertainty yet grounded in earnestness, captured the attention of everyone around. "Ethan was just trying to be happy. That's okay, right?" The adults exchanged glances, as if Lily had struck a chord with something deep within their adult hearts. They wanted to shield their own children from hurt and loss. But how? Mr. Montgomery paused. His posture shifted slightly. The tension hung in the air, and for a moment it felt like he was searching for a way to connect. Behind the stern facade, the slightest flicker of confusion crossed his face. "Ethan has been through a lot," Lily continued, her voice growing stronger. "He deserves to be happy, just like everyone else here." She gestured around them, showcasing the gathering crowd. "We all have stories about hard times, but it's love that helps us through them. Right, everyone?" Heads nodded slowly, nods of agreement transforming the silence into something warm and supportive. Even amidst the swirling chaos, the unity felt palpable, like a shared heartbeat among them all. Mr. Montgomery's hard expression softened just a fraction. He looked at the faces around him, a community woven together by common trials. But he was still hesitant, clinging to the remnants of his fear. "Ethan," he started, his voice lower now, almost gentler. "Dad, please," Ethan nearly pleaded, his eyes filled with both fear and hope. "I'm happy here, with Lily. I want to be here. Don't you see? I need this." Lily's grip tightened around his hand, and she could feel Ethan's pulse quicken. Mr. Montgomery took a deep breath, his shoulders visibly relaxing just a bit. Perhaps he was beginning to understand that his son needed more than a strict father. Perhaps what they both needed was to let their guard down. But just as the moment felt tender, a distant sound rumbled like an approaching storm. A familiar black car pulled up in the distance, its sleek frame glinting ominously. The door swung open, and another figure emerged, a woman in an elegant suit, eyes focused and determined. "Ethan," she called, authority bursting from her lips. "We need to talk. It's about your future." A collective gasp echoed around them, tension tightening back into the atmosphere. All the warmth from before felt on the verge of flickering out, replaced by apprehension. Ethan's heart sank as he exchanged a worried glance with Lily. He had battled through the storm only to face another one. What would this new wave of confrontation bring? Would he be able to stand firm against the pressures of adults, or would the warmth of friendship be extinguished again by the weight of expectation? As the crowd fell silent, all eyes turned back to the unfolding drama. Would this woman unravel the fragile hope they had built, or could it ignite a new kind of strength within Ethan? Lily squeezed his hand tighter, determined to provide the strength he needed in that decisive moment. The question loomed in the air, an echo of uncertainty. Could love truly triumph over fear? Ethan felt the weight of that woman's gaze pierce through him, driving sharp fear into his heart. She held authority as if she could command the crowd into silence merely by the power of her presence. He swallowed hard and shifted nervously, trying to muster the courage to speak, yet words escaped him like whispers in wind. "Mom,"
he blurted out, almost instinctively. His mind raced, trying to comprehend how this moment had spiraled from happiness to dread in mere seconds. He glanced sideways at Lily, whose reassuring grip on his hand was an anchor in the storm. Her face mirrored his uncertainty, but with a glimmer of resolve that made him feel less alone. Mr. Montgomery stepped forward, discovering a more protective aspect of himself, his jaw clenched. "What do you want?" he challenged, the underlying fear tinged with instinctive defiance. The woman, Ethan's mother, modified her expression to one that weighed empathy against authority. "Ethan," she said firmly, but not unkindly, "we need to discuss your treatment options. It can't wait any longer. It's critical." Ethan's heart raced. Treatment? The word loomed over him like a dark cloud. There was an unwelcome familiarity to the concern woven through her voice, a reminder of all the doctor's visits and decisions he could barely face. He wished he could escape into the laughter that had filled the yard moments ago. "No," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't want treatment." Lily's fingers tightened on his hand. "Ethan, you deserve to feel good," she murmured, hoping to infuse him with strength. "But you can decide what you want." The crowd watched, their attention a tangible force, their breaths held. Every pair of eyes was upon them, scrutinizing the precarious balance between a boy's desire for normalcy and a mother's quest for control. "Ethan," she replied, softer now, her eyes glistening, "I want what's best for you." A pause hung in the air. "I know you've been through so much. I just want to help you before it's too late." "Help?" he echoed, bitterness swallowing the hope that had clung to him moments before. "You left. You walked away when it got hard. You can't just come back and pretend you want to help." The words crashed against the peaceful aura of the gathering, shattering the delicate equilibrium. The tension surged like a storm building in the distance, every person waiting for the thunder to burst. "Ethan, please," she urged, desperation creeping into her voice, reaching out as if to bridge the gap created by years of absence. "It's not like that. You don't know what I've been through." "But I do," he interrupted, a fire igniting within him despite the fear. "I've been through it all too." Ethan felt the warmth of Lily's presence solidify, filling him with courage. "You don't get to decide what I need. I do." The murmurs from the crowd began to rise in volume, a powerful undertone of support cascading through the assembled neighbors, echoing Ethan's words, igniting a spark of hope. Even Mr. Montgomery stood, arms crossed, but with a hint of understanding in his eyes. Ethan turned back to his mother, determination blazing in his gaze. "I'm just a kid who wants to feel normal. I'm happy here with Lily and everyone caring about me. You don't get to take that away."
A heavy silence hung over the group. The collective breath held in anticipation of her response. Ethan's chest heaved, and the years of hurt spilled into that moment as he allowed the truth to lay bare between them. Could this fierce emotion he was feeling create a crack in her armor? But just as she opened her mouth to respond, the thunderous sounds of a distant engine revving interrupted. A siren blared not far off, drowning their moment of vulnerability. Lily's grip slackened slightly, and Ethan's heart sank. What new wave of confrontation now lay ahead? More forces at play would descend upon their fragile peace, and he wasn't sure he could handle any more transitions. Could their little community stand together against this overwhelming tide, or would fear push them further apart? The weight of the question bore down on Ethan as the storm rolled in, leaving him at another precipice of decision and uncertainty. The siren echoed through the stillness, a harsh reminder that the world outside their fragile moment hadn't been paused. Faces in the crowd shifted from shock to concern, eyes darting toward the sound. Ethan felt time slow, each tick of the clock underscored by the rapid beating of his heart. Did this mean more trouble was coming? Was his mother going to take him away now before he could find his footing? What is that? Lily's voice broke through the tumult of his thoughts, laced with anxiety. Ethan squeezed her hand, desperate for the grounding presence she always offered. Ethan's mother glanced over her shoulder, her momentary distraction giving him a fleeting opportunity to breathe. He looked into her eyes, searching for any hint of understanding, any flicker of the mother he once knew. But they were hardened, masking turmoil behind layers of authority. "This isn't the time," she said, but Ethan caught the tremor in her voice. Was she scared too? "There's no time like the present," Ethan shot back, feeling emboldened by the crowd's swell of support. "Why did you come back now?" He almost wanted to challenge the dark thought that maybe she'd just come to take him away again, to drown his happiness in medical jargon and sterile rooms. He'd felt abandoned, invisible, like a ghost wandering through his own life, while everyone else crafted their little moments and memories. Now here she was, layering on more conflict. "Because I'm your mother," she replied, her voice steadier now, but taut with something unspoken. "Protecting me from what?" he demanded, bitterness boiling in his throat. "From feeling good? From having people care about me? You're only here because you're scared of what's happening." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, but their murmurs underscored his courage. They were listening, every resident of this small town leaning into his words, bridging the gap of courage he thought only he could fill.
A police car rolled into view, lights flashing but with no harsh sirens, a gentle reminder of authority rather than alarm. A man stepped out, uniform crisp and imposing. Ethan's breath hitched. Was this help, or another force ready to divide them further? "Is everything all right, folks?" Officer Jenkins asked, surveying the scene. "We heard there might be a disturbance." "It's fine!" Ethan shouted, wanting to keep the moment alive, to remind them all of the bond they had just begun to forge. "We're having a conversation." Ethan's mother turned her attention to the officer, her demeanor shifting yet again. "This isn't a disturbance, just a—" She faltered for a moment, as if unsure how to label the conversation. "A family matter." "A family matter?" Officer Jenkins echoed, seeming perplexed. He stepped closer, expression softening. "And what can I do to help you?" Ethan's pulse raced, the weight of his next words crashing down like a tidal wave. This was the moment. He swallowed hard, unsure whether he would find strength or dissatisfaction. "Tell her I don't want her to take me away," he pleaded, voice wavering. "Tell her I'm okay here." The words hung in the air like a sacred promise. The silence wrapped around him, and Ethan held his breath, feeling his tiny rebellion ripple outwards. His fate was uncertain, but so was everyone else's reaction. He wanted them to choose together in that moment. Across the front line of curious faces, he saw a flicker of light in Lily's eyes. She believed in him. Did that matter enough for him to believe in himself? But just as the officer prepared to speak, Ethan's mother turned back, her expression inscrutable. "You think you know what's best for you, Ethan. What if what?" he interrupted abruptly, heart racing. "What if this, us, is what's best? Just give me a chance." Suddenly everything hinged on that single moment. Would she shatter his hopes, or recognize the strength nestled within the community around them? Would they break apart, or finally come together? And outside this circle of chaos, another engine revved, growing louder, threatening to change everything all over again. What fresh struggle loomed behind that sound? In a town where tight-knit connections flourished, the impending clash even felt like a reckoning in the air. Was this the breaking point, or the beginning of something new? The answer lingered tantalizingly close, yet dangerously out of reach. Ethan's heart raced as the approaching sound grew louder, drowning out even his own thoughts. He strained to see past the crowd, anxiety curling in his stomach. What trouble was on its way now? He could feel the tension in the air, a collective breath held tight like a rubber band ready to snap. His mother's face had paled, eyes flickering toward the noise. The officer stepped closer, instinctively protective. "Stay calm, everyone. Let's see what's going on." The crowd shifted, whispering. Ethan's face burned. He could feel their gazes, curiosity mingled with concern. They were here for him. They believed in him. He could see in Lily's eyes, sparkling with resolve, that she wasn't going anywhere.
He wanted to harness that strength and wield it against his mother's coldness. "You can't just come back and think you can make decisions for me," he blurted out, feeling emboldened. Every heartbeat echoed in his ears as if to remind him of the urgency. "This is my life." "Ethan," his mother began, hands clenched tight at her sides. "You don't understand." "Then help me understand," he interrupted, desperation spilling over. "Help me see why I should walk back into that world you made for me. I'm fighting for my right to live how I feel." "Sometimes protecting you means making tough choices," she insisted, but her voice faltered, revealing a crack in her resolve. Just then, the heavy rumble of another vehicle cut through the air. A black SUV rolled into view, drawing attention away from the standoff, its windows tinted dark, ominous like a storm lifting in the distance. Ethan's breath caught. Did it belong to more authorities? Or worse, someone here to take him away? Officer Jenkins motioned for Ethan to stand back, and the crowd parted slightly. As the car door swung open, a tall figure stepped out, someone Ethan recognized, a face from a world he'd rather forget. It was Mr. Collins, the owner of the local pharmaceutical company, his swagger exuding confidence and an unsettling calm. "Is everything all right, officer?" Collins asked, the concern in his voice hard to read. His eyes flicked over the crowd, landing on Ethan, making the boy feel like prey. "Just a family discussion," Officer Jenkins stated, but Ethan could sense the tension beneath the surface, the officer's caution palpable. Mr. Collins stepped closer, a saccharine smile spreading across his face. "Ethan, how are you? Heard a lot about you. Your mother has been worried sick." His words dripped with insincerity, creating a pit in Ethan's stomach. "Not sick enough to understand," Ethan replied, baring his teeth in defiance, feeling the warmth of the crowd's support swell around him. With each passing second, he understood that he could either let fear dictate his actions or confront it head-on. Turning back to his mother, Ethan took a deep breath, trying to reclaim the thoughts swirling in his mind. What if I said I wanted to stay? What if I chose to be here, with my friends, with people who care about me? For a fleeting moment, his mother hesitated. Ethan didn't want to fight. He just wanted to be seen, to put an end to this tug-of-war that often pains them both. He could feel the crack in her armor, even if she didn't admit it. But just as hope began to sprout, Mr. Collins' voice sliced through the fragile moment like a knife. "You really think they've got your best interest at heart, kid? You're risking everything." "Risk or freedom?" Ethan challenged. "Don't you want me to have a choice in my life?" "Your mother knows best, Ethan," Collins replied, his tone sharply dismissive. It was as if he could take the moment and squeeze it tight, controlling how it ended. Before Ethan could respond, his mother's face shifted again. The struggle was all but visible in her brow, but she wouldn't let it break the surface. In that charged space, everything was poised on a knife edge. Would his mother fight for him, or would she fold to the pressures pressing in from every side? Would the community that stood with him be enough to face the looming uncertainties? More engines roared in the distance, raising the stakes even further. Ethan felt a sense of foreboding, wondering who else was coming and what would happen next. The moment hung in the air, thick and electric. All eyes were on the three of them, waiting. Could he finally break free, or were fresh chains already forming, tightening around him? Ethan's desperation echoed in his mind, drowning out Colin's mocking voice. He felt the weight of the crowd's anticipation as all eyes stayed locked on the three of them. The distance from his mother felt infinite, yet he still hoped she would choose him over everyone else. The present and future that had once seemed so bleak, now glimmering with possibility. "Mom, I want to belong. I don't need saving from a life that hasn't even started," he pleaded, his voice raw with emotion. A flicker of hesitation passed over her face, but Collins stepped forward again, the tension in the atmosphere thickening. "Look, there's more at stake here than just your whims, Ethan." His condescending smile felt like a slap. "Your mother has sacrificed so much for you. Don't throw it away over a fleeting moment." Ethan listened to him, his mother said, her voice strained. It was like a blade piercing through the warmth of promise that had just begun to bloom between them. "There are people who care about you." "Not like this," Ethan cut her off, every nerve ending firing with anger and frustration. "Not if it means losing who I am. I can't do that, Mom. I won't." The rumble of engines grew louder, drowning out the murmur of the crowd. Ethan's heart raced again. What came next could change everything.
A door suddenly swung open behind Collins, and the sight of uniformed personnel spilled out like a storm ready to unleash. Ethan could feel his stomach churn, like a roller coaster taking a plummet into the unknown. His mother looked at the officers with a mix of fear and resignation, the heat of her hand lost in his grasp, the distance between them growing unbearable. "Do you know what happens next?" Collins taunted, eyes gleaming with triumph. "You think your friends will be there? They're already scared. You want to gamble with everything we've worked for? This is your family's future." A ripple of gasps swept through the crowd. Ethan's pulse quickened. Would they truly turn on him?
Just when he thought his world was about to fracture, Lily stepped forward, her sturdy frame an anchor in the storm. "Ethan, you don't have to do this alone," she said, her voice steady and unwavering. "We're with you. Everyone here is with you." Those words washed over him, a cooling balm against the heat of his mother's uncertainty. Ethan scanned the faces around him. Encouraging nods, fierce expressions, an unyielding bond shone like armor. Realization dawned on him. He wasn't fighting solely for himself anymore. He was defending something much bigger, a community that believed in him, that stood by every chaotic moment. With newfound resolve, Ethan declared, "I can't turn back. I need to know I fought for my own choices, that I lived my truth." His mother's eyes flashed with a mixture of admiration and fear. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but the arrival of the officers loomed overhead like storm clouds, heavy with authority. "I won't let fear rule my life," Ethan said, bravely facing the squadron of officers now gathered behind Collins. "If you want me, you're going to have to prove you understand me first." A low murmur surged through the crowd, their breath caught, hanging expectantly in the air. Just as the officer in charge stepped forward, eyes locked on Ethan, a sudden siren blared in the distance, drowning the world around him once more. For a brief moment, it felt like time had stopped. Would his mother finally step up? Would Collins' tight grip on the narrative loosen or tighten? What was coming was now uncertain, and uncertainty held its breath. Could he really hold on to the life he yearned for, or would fate dictate a different path for him? Ethan felt the ground shifting beneath him, uncertain but beckoning. With everything hanging in the balance, he braced himself against the next wave. What would the siren signify? And in the aftermath, would he still have his freedom? The siren's wail blared through the air, echoing off nearby buildings and drowning out the crowd's murmurs. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. It was a sound pregnant with suspense and fear, a sound that rumbled through the deep recesses of his gut. Glancing at his mother, he saw her eyes widen, a flash of panic flaring before she quickly masked it with a strained smile. "Stay close, Ethan," she murmured, her voice barely carrying over the commotion. The urgency in her tone pierced through the chaos, but he could feel the ground beneath him shifting again. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone standing behind him, the lives intertwining in this dramatic moment. The officer in charge stepped forward, a towering figure with a badge gleaming under the dull light. He raised a hand, signaling the siren to cut off. Silence fell like a heavy curtain, bringing the crowd's attention squarely onto Ethan, who stood trembling with both fear and resolve. "Ethan," the officer's voice was calm but firm like thunder after a storm. "Step forward." Ethan felt his heart hammering, every pulse echoing louder than the last. He glanced at Lily, whose fierce eyes urged him on. She believed in him, and for the first time, he felt he wasn't alone. With a push of determination, he stepped forward. "If you think you can intimidate me into silence, you're wrong," Ethan challenged. The words tumbled out, fueled by the support around him. "You want to know who I am? I'm someone who fights for my right to be myself." A ripple of cheers erupted from the crowd, a wave of empowerment washing over him. Yet, amidst the surge of support, he could see Collins' eyes narrowing, irritation twisted into his features. This was escalating beyond just a struggle for his identity. It was a battle of wills, and Collins wanted to maintain control. "Ethan," the officer interjected, shifting his posture slightly. "We're here because of a greater issue than your insubordination. This is about community safety and the consequences of your actions." "Consequences?" Ethan barked, the heat rising in him. "You mean the consequences of my existence? You mean to invoke fear to get compliance? That's not justice." The officer's jaw tightened, and the crowd held its breath, sensing the tension spiraling. In that heated standoff, a little girl, small and unassuming, her pigtails swaying with every careful step, emerged from behind the massive bodies. She pointed her finger at the officer, her lips curled in a determined frown. "Stop!" she yelled, her voice cutting through the tension like a prayer. Eyes turned, confusion mingled with curiosity. "Who are you to say anything?" Collins sneered at her.
But the girl, resolute and unyielding, didn't flinch. "I'm Mia," she declared, loudly and clearly, her confidence infectious. "You can't take him away. We all love him." Ethan's heart melted at her words. It didn't matter that she was just a kid. She made him feel seen in a way that sent warmth pulsing through him. The officer hesitated, glancing around at the sea of faces, each imbued with defiance and support. The murmurs rose again, blending into a chorus that seemed to envelop Ethan, shielding him from the raging storm of authority. "Yeah," added Lily, her voice rising. "We're not afraid." The officer's grip on the situation began to slip, uncertainty creeping into his expression. Ethan felt sweat trickle down his back as he considered the fracture between what had been set in motion and the shimmering possibilities of change. He locked eyes with Mia, whose fierce determination ignited something flickering inside him. Maybe, he thought, measuring the weight of their strength together, just maybe, this is our moment. The silence deepened as the tension shifted, questions lingering in the air. What choice would the officer make? Would the fragile bond of hope hold under the weight of authority? And in the heart of that chaos, could unity actually pave a new path for Ethan?
With the eyes of the community and the compass of his heart guiding him, one question loomed. Would they come together to carve out their own destiny? Or was this moment destined to be crushed by the very forces they stood against? Ethan felt the weight of all their eyes on him, a mingling of support and anxiety. He blinked, trying to clear his mind. Mia's bravery shone like a lighthouse in the storm. It reminded him of something precious, the feeling of belonging. He glanced at his mom, who stood rooted, her face caught between worry and pride. There was silence, a moment caught in the air, stretching uncomfortably. The officer shifted, his brows knitting together in frustration. "You think this is a game?" he barked, his voice booming again. "This isn't about you, Ethan. This is about maintaining order." "Order?" Ethan echoed. "What kind of order is built on fear? You want compliance, but what you're really creating is rebellion." Cries of encouragement rippled through the crowd again. "We're with you," shouted someone from the back. The air thickened with emotion. Hope hung close, like the summer rain about to drop. Mia stepped closer, her wide eyes full of trust. "You don't have to be scared, Ethan. We're all here. We won't let him hurt you." She was so small, yet the strength of her words echoed like a drumbeat in Ethan's heart. It was impossible to dismiss the fierceness in her small body. Could this little girl fight off the storm shaking the very foundations of their lives? In that moment, he believed she could. "Look at the people," someone shouted. "This is our town, our home." As more voices joined, the tide shifted. The energy of the crowd surged, and even Collins appeared taken aback. The officer's grip on authority splintered with every chant that cascaded through the air, as though the ground itself rose to meet their cries. Ethan took another step forward, emboldened. "We are not afraid," he shouted above the swell, feeling the power of their unity surge back to him like a gentle fire igniting his spirit. "We deserve to be seen. We deserve to be heard." For a brief flash, he caught Colin's eyes, and they were filled with something between anger and uncertainty, perhaps even a hint of fear. It was a realization. Power was only as strong as the fear behind it. Ethan could see that this moment, this very moment, was where everything unfurled. But a voice sliced through the clamor, and Ethan turned to find the officer leaning in close, a hint of menace shadowing his expression. "Do you really think this will end well for you?" he warned, his demeanor darkening again. "Maybe it's time someone stood up," Ethan shot back, heart racing, fists clenched tight by his side. The russet glow of sunset cut through the darkness of the altercation, illuminating faces filled with hope and resolve. Suddenly, Mia stepped even closer to Ethan, grabbing his hand, squeezing it tightly. It was a simple gesture, but filled with unbreakable bonds. Then a rumble echoed within the crowd, as one voice after another rose in unified spirit. This was more than a fight for Ethan's identity. It blossomed into a collective demand for recognition. The officer surveyed the scene, his jaw clenched fiercely as he weighed the odds. It was more than just a standoff now. It was the birth of a movement. And Ethan could feel it in his bones. Something was changing. The air felt electric, charged with determination.
and he wondered what miracles might come from this fiery moment of truth. As the embrace of dusk whispered through the crowd, a question hung in the air, thick with possibilities. Would they all take that leap together? Would this be the day they forged a new path? In the back of his mind, a flicker of doubt dared to surface. What would happen next? What cost would they all pay for this unity? But as he looked at Mia, Lily, and the many faces surrounding him, he knew one thing for certain. They were ready to fight. And as tension crackled, poised on the edge of change, Ethan could no longer ignore the truth swelling within him. This was just the beginning. What lay ahead could either bring them together or tear them apart. But one question lingered, piercing through the buzz of uncertainty. What were they willing to sacrifice for their truth? As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows on the ground, Ethan felt the collective pulse of his friends, his community, steady around him. Their resolve wove a fabric of strength that held firm against the pressures of silence and compliance. Mia squeezed his hand even tighter, her unyielding determination reflected in the fierce joy of their bond. "Together!" he yelled, channeling all that energy into a rallying cry that surged like wildfire, igniting their spirits. "Love wins!" they echoed, their voices swelling with newfound purpose. Ethan stood tall, every doubt dissolving like mist in the dawning light. This wasn't just his battle anymore. This was a fight for everyone who had felt like a ghost in their own lives. The officer held the crowd's attention, his expression wavering. "This is unruly," he called out, struggling to maintain command over the clamor surrounding him. Ethan seized that moment, stepping forward with unwavering conviction. "We're not unruly, we are authentic." His words rang clear, slicing through the fog of authority. "We're tired of living in shadows, we want to live in the light." The crowd cheered, united under that one truth. As chaos began to unfold around them with increased fervor, the officers exchanged glances, their confidence visibly shaken. And in that electric atmosphere, Collins's bravado cracked, revealing a flicker of unease lurking within him. The officer raised his hands in a gesture of submission. "We don't mean to disrupt." "No!"
Ethan interrupted, fueled by every heartbeat in the space, the primal need for change coursing through him. "You're here to listen, to understand." Had they not heard how resilient this community had been? The hardships, the struggles, the determination to support one another through it all? In the eyes of the crowd packed tightly together, hope blossomed with every shared glance, reconnecting them to their roots. Mia took a step forward again, her small but mighty voice shouting above the noise. "We'll fight for our right to be heard, for our light to shine through." As support surged back like a tidal wave, Ethan knew this was his moment, a moment to free their spirits from fear's hold. He turned back toward his mother, whose face held both pride and confusion. "Mom, I know you love me, but love means setting us free, not holding us back." All eyes snapped to Ethan's mother, questions lingering, waiting for her reaction. She stared, grappling with the tumult of emotions that warped between loyalty and the warmth of truth. "I never meant to hold you back," she said finally, her voice a soft trembling. "I was just trying to protect you." "But I can protect myself." Ethan stood strong, the weight of words like an anchor. Love isn't just about protection, it's about trust. It's respect. Silent realization swept the crowd, nods of understanding showing as companionship filled every corner of the park. The blunt edge of fear began to soften. Hearts that had once been barricaded started to crack open. In the distance, a new sound emerged, cheering voices resonating, echoing the passion igniting their spirits. Families whispered each other's names. Friends came together. Hands built bridges across the gaps formed by years of silence. As encouragement wrinkled the air around them, it seemed all of Willow Creek surged as one heartbeat, a unified family. "Right now, this moment speaks to our truth," Ethan reaffirmed, channeling the strength of every person who stood with him. "Nothing and no one can take that away. Not fear, not authority." An overwhelming wave of agreement rose from the crowd, lifting hardships away. They had forged something incredible, a bond anchored in love and determination. With a deep breath, Ethan's mother stepped forward, eyes shimmering with tears, and for the first time stood beside him. "You're right, Ethan. I haven't always seen that, but I want to support you now, letting you choose your path." Collins's bravado wavered further as the tension shifted and uncertainty creeped into his posture. "Mom, let's build our future together." Ethan's voice rang steady with conviction, unwavering in this newfound embrace of possibility.
Together, the crowd thundered, united like a shelter against the storm. It was an overwhelming crescendo, a celebration of every moment spent in darkness turning into radiant light.
They were not just participating in a movement. They were crafting an era where love prevailed over anything else they had faced. And with each shared heartbeat, they took steps toward a future filled with hope, healing, and authenticity. Ethan could feel it, freedom unfurling its wings, promising something beautiful rising from the ashes of hardship. Their little town of Willow Creek would stand firm, shaped by the resolute strength of community and the unwavering belief that love always prevails. In the end, they had decided together. No longer children trapped in the chains of circumstance. They were a family uniting against the odds, courage stitched into every heartbeat. And in that moment, out of the storm-worn shadows, hope burst forth like the dawn of a new day. So, to each of you out there, heartened by this journey, now is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss exclusive stories like this one that affirm the incredible strength within us all. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, spark positivity, and propel our community forward. Comment below your feelings about this ending, let your voice echo with ours, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait, not even one more second. Let's uplift each other as we weave our stories of hope into the world.